Hello, could Don Branton-Smith be the spark England need? Stop and Joe as Simmons is charged down. Plus, red card, red card, red card. Is this a wake-up call for the players? And that's to come on this week's episode of the Ruck and Maul podcast. Plus, we'll preview this weekend's Six Nations game. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up on the videos. As I said, we'll split this podcast into two halves, just Harry and I this week. But Harry, we'll start with the big news of the week. DC's gone. He's retired. He's hung up his boots. He's not going to the MLR, which a lot of people thought he might have done. He's retired. What's your favourite moment of Dan Carter?
I've never really been one to remember specific moments that players have, but it was quite cool to be there for the be actually in the stadium for the game where New Zealand dismantled France in the 2015 World Cup with him at 10. That was obviously not so much a game where he stood out, but everything went through him for that New Zealand team for 10 years. And he was the best player in the world for that whole time, and maybe ever, depending on how you categorize it. How you
classify that, yeah. He got me into rugby is the thing. Wilkinson in 2003 got me really engaged in rugby, but Carter in 2005, the Lions, when he really broke onto the scene, and just in the second test when he dismantled, got those 32 points, kick from the touchline, what a wonderful, wonderful player. Sort of that attacking-minded 10, which so many players now base their game off, really came from him. Like Wilkinson, you look at how defensively minded Wilkinson was as well and how impressive he was. And you'd ultimately argue that if Wilkinson had stayed fit for longer, he might have the record over Carter on points, but you don't say at the top of your game, you're not the New Zealand fly half for 2 World Cups, a double World Cup winner. Like, he didn't play in 2019. Did he get in the squad in 2019? Or was he gone?
World Cup? No.
Yeah, he was way retired then after. But still to go at, the fact that they were still talking about him playing at 36, still pretty impressive. So, tipping the cap to you, DC.
Yeah, no, a shame that he never turned up at an English club. He did play in France briefly, didn't he?
Yeah, he was at Perpignan in 2008. He moved across, which was semi-productive, and then he went back to the Crusaders. Then he went to Racing for a bit when he was slightly older, then went back again for the World Cup. So it was kind of like payday, if that makes sense. He was on a huge deal at Racing. It was over $1 million. It was like, he had one of the biggest contracts at the time. It was like $3 million over 2 years or something like that.
I think 3 seasons, 2015 to 2018.
Yeah.
Or was that 2 seasons? 15, 16,
I feel like
16,
he was only there for
17.
2. Because he didn't play a lot. I think he got injured a bit, but...
Well, presumably 15 is immediately after the World Cup, and then 18. So it's that 2.5 seasons. Yeah, no, very good. Always very, very good. A shame, but people get old.
And
it's just one of those things.
And it's not like New Zealand is stuck for fly half talent, which I'll probably make a bit of a theme of this podcast. Is the key message I want to sort of get across in this podcast is that you need a fly half to be successful. And starting at fly halves, let's go to the game of the weekend from the Premiership, which was London Irish Bristol. Oh my lord! But you three didn't watch that. You watched everything, and then
I saw bits of it.
It was brilliant. I mean, I did sit on the sofa about half an hour in going, I was laughing to myself because I was like, I'm just going to sit back here and enjoy Charles Piatow ripping people apart and Nalango. Apparently, because he played for Hull KR, he's been in England a lot. He's English, which...
Well, yeah, he is a soldier in the British Army.
Yeah. I didn't know that, but I've only found out recently he can qualify on residency. Eddie, if you're
That
listening,
would be quite something.
get him in.
Um, I assume he's Fijian by
Yeah, I
yeah.
wouldn't want to stereotype, but yeah, I think Silver's is it Seaver
Well,
is
yeah, no,
a Fijian name.
is the capital of Fiji. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the problem. No, Suva. Anyway, I think he is Fijian. I'm 95% confident of that. I don't think he will play for England. I don't think he should. I would much rather he play for Fiji and be great for them. Some big news for tier two nations with regards to the World Cup, which we might briefly talk about later on.
Yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, no, I think I roughly know what you're talking about, but you can probably go into it. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Yeah, for me, just on that actually, Charles Piutau, they talked a bit about before he wanted to play for Tonga in the last World Cup. That didn't go through. Please let him, please, because he would make such a difference to them. He was so good. Like he just is world class. Like he's head and shoulders above any 15 in the Premiership. You'd hasten to say he's the best in the world at the moment. I can't think of anyone at the moment that's that good.
It's difficult to compare between doing it in the Premiership and doing it in Super Rugby, isn't it? Because you get
Yeah.
so much. The type of opportunities you get are so different. I don't think he would be as good in Super Rugby, whereas someone like Milani Nanai was amazing in Super Rugby, and it hasn't quite worked for him in the Premiership.
You do see that a lot, though. You do see that a lot with players coming across. Yeah. They either superb or like Matt Simmons. I was thinking this the other day. Like Matt Simons, the second row when he won the title with the Chiefs, and amazing in the line out. Came over to Irish, was average. Went to Wasps, very average at Wasps, and then he's ended up at Quins, where he's been their go-to sort of second row, and he looks a bit better. But he was touted as someone that was going to be in the England team. Like Brad Shields is another one that they were just raving about, who's not really injuries has played a part on that, as sort of come into contact. But
yeah, I think Simmons is a particular case because he was like they don't have the size, like just a sheer number of people who are that big in New Zealand.
Yeah,
they just don't have that many of them. So him being a pretty huge guy made him stand out in New Zealand, whereas here we have slightly more of them to choose from. Basically, it's slightly less useful. And it's sort of not, it's not quite, but kind of the case where a player is always big coming through age groups and doesn't develop the skills.
Yeah.
Obviously, Simmons is a very, very good rugby player, better than any of us, better than anyone we've played with or
will ever do.
Ever.
Yeah.
But he, like, you sign a second row from New Zealand, or you sign a forward from New Zealand, and you think, yes, we're gonna have some fun here. Got ball playing from a big guy, but Simmons is a big guy, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, I'd say he's a good line out. He's a good at the line out.
Stand out in not his ball skills. Obviously, his line out's okay, but we've got a few of them as well.
Just very quickly on the second rows, did you see that I didn't realise that Bryn Evans, who was at Irish and at Sale, is now at the Highlanders. He's going to be the oldest player to play in Super Rugby, which is fantastic. If they play him,
the oldest. Surely he's the oldest in Aotearoa because the Force have got some really old guys.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the oldest to play for a New Zealand side anyway at 37, I think he might be. So fair play to him.
Maybe he'll. Yeah, no, and yeah, exactly. Give it a go. So he, New Zealand second row with very good hands, and like more around the park, and he's a bit smaller than Simmons, and sort of your average English second row. Obviously, he's very tall, but he's a lighter build. I'm sure. Well, given that we came into this talking about Irish Bears, I have in the past been a bit rude about Steve Maffey.
I was going
That
to
try,
talk about Steve Maffey. Yeah, go on.
that try was very cool.
A
That is
punt
the
run.
dream.
He was incredible.
I'm sorry.
Nick Phibbs
I've
got
never
man of
seen.
the match.
I've
Nick
genuinely
Phibbs got
never
man of
seen
the
him do
match.
it before.
But for me, like Nick was class. Would come off the bench, just get man of the match for playing 25 minutes. Fair play. But he did score a try
Yeah.
and get a try assist, so he deserves it. But Steve Maffey, we were 31-6 down. Nowhere. Didn't look like we were going to get a try for love or money. And then he just goes, fuck it. I'm just going to take the ball. And
Yeah.
it's brilliant. Like I think he's had his injuries. When I signed him, we couldn't get on the field, and I was like, oh God. But I've loved Steve Maffey ever since he burst on the scene at Tigers when they played him at 6 and swapped him from the 6 and the second row. And he was running around like a madman, back to his best. He did some amazing offloads. He did it again in the second half, which sets up the Brevity Clues try in the corner, which in itself is really well
Yeah.
finished. He had a really tough game. Obviously, the Bedlow incident where Bedlow literally spears him in the head. I mean, I've kind of calmed down a bit since Sunday because I wanted to get quite into Carl Dixon and tempo. They bottled it, unfortunately. But sometimes with these, and we'll probably talk about the red cards later on, but it is a red card. But there was another one going around on Twitter as well that Piers O'Connor had hit him in the head. I mean, these things are difficult to pick up. I do understand that, but you've got a bloke who's being tip tackled. They then say he's not driven into the floor, but he still dropped him on his upper back. Well, he drops him on the neck. There's evidence of that, but yeah.
Yeah. I actually can't remember the framework for assessing those tackles right now. So I can't remember what the referees are looking for. Obviously, the head contact ones are very well understood now, and you could recite them with your eyes closed, given
Yeah.
how much how frequently they're used. Let's say, sadly, I don't know so much about the tip tackle ones. Obviously, they all sort of kicked off and have been enforced since the Warburton tackle in the World Cup,
That was a
whenever
lot
that
worse
was,
than
8 years ago.
one, though. It was a lot
Yeah,
worse.
well, sort of effectively the same though, like in terms of outcome. Um, the only thing about it was when I watched the replays, it is very clear that his arm and shoulder comes down first, and I vaguely remember that being a mitigating factor, or sort of not quite mitigating, but an indicator that it's not as severe, rather than literally head hits the ground first,
But it's quite interesting
which
on
is
that.
what happened.
But quickly to jump between games, that's what happened with Bassett, where Lindenberg takes him out in the air. That Claire Daniels is on the TMO. Bassett puts his hands down, but Daniels comes in and goes, "Well, if his hands aren't there, he lands on his head." So you can argue if his hands aren't there, he's going to definitely land on his head. So that was a
Yeah,
little bit consistency. In the end, it didn't make much of it. It didn't honestly, I mean, Bristol scored 14 points when he was off the pitch from interceptions where I was just clutching my head in my hands. But yeah, I mean,
yeah,
my thing, real quick thing, just so you move on, is Irish. They talked obviously about the bench. I mean, I was a little bit worried when Crevy was on the bench, and I'm like, you've got to start Crevy but he has played a lot of minutes, and his age is a big factor. But when he came on, he was brilliant. Sean O'Brien, like I've said it before, but people were sort of like, oh, we've got him for £400,000 a year. That's a lot of money. But flipping heck, every time he's played, I know he's not played a lot, but he makes a significant difference. His carrying he's got such a unique carry where he just gets his little feet, he gets his little hands away. The setup for Brothy Clues' try is absolutely brilliant. Makes a huge difference. Rob Simmons as well dropped out last minute as well because he didn't quite recover from the head knock against Exeter. So you lose 100 cat Wallaby from the bench, but you can still take Nick Phibbs on, sorry, who ultimately should be starting because he makes such a difference from the base. But again, another solid performance by Paddy Jackson. So Ireland will continue to ignore him, but that's fine because Irish need him.
Well, yeah, it's Ireland will continue to ignore him, and so they should.
Yeah.
Just on a couple of things, we'll do them sort of game relevant and then slightly less game relevant. The final moments, who are you ascribing blame to there?
It's difficult, isn't it? It's Tom Parton. If you had to make it, if
Yeah.
it cut down the line, it's Tom Parton. You slow it down in slow motion. The pass comes out far too low.
Yeah.
The support
the
line
pass
is
almost reaches, like the pass would get to Phipps's hands and then it just drops straight at his knees.
yeah.
It was on the right angle.
The next person at fault, and I've just praised him, is Paddy Jackson, because Paddy Jackson thinks Nick Phibbs is getting it, which
Hasn't got his hands up.
Any kids watching that, everyone expect the ball. You cannot, whatever standard you play, you have to expect that you're going to get the ball at all times. It is difficult. I mean, Pat Lam sort of deflected any responsibility of Bristol losing that game onto Irish. I mean, I've said this before. Like, as I say, Pat Lam made two interesting coaching decisions. He took John O'Furr off just after half time. That's fine. John O'Furr is 37. He's played a lot of rugby. He's Bristol's best prop. Understandable. Your team's 34, whatever up, right?
The
Piatow one, though, is really strange. Piatow, every time he got the ball, did something. Like, the fact that the Nalango try was when he literally took the ball, stood still, boshed off Ben Lodus, who's a big lad, standing still. I'm like, yeah, there was a bit of arrogance in there. Like, yeah, you are 3 tries up. Okay, but the game isn't technically won yet, and it's point proven. There was still half an hour on the clock, and Irish proved the point. I'm not saying at all, if Charles Piatow stays on, they don't win, but Piatow on is better than Piatow being off. So he should have stayed on, to be honest. And that may or not have cost them. However, Bristol looked ragged by the end, where they just didn't make any tackles and they were just falling away. And we were getting easy meters and in behind. But it shows when you do have experience on the bench, and Bristol's bench wasn't experienced, and they're struggling with injuries and they're struggling with internationals away. Irish took advantage. I'll take 3 points against Bristol, because in going into that, I was like, we're going to lose. Can we get a losing bonus point? We should have lost, but at the same time, we played well throughout the game that we deserve the victory. It's a shame that Parton didn't pass it properly, but he's still young. Like that Parton, Loader, and Assel Collins as a back three is very nice. So Irish, keep going. Very quickly, if anyone is listening from London Irish, please sign Santiago Chocobaras. He's still not got a club, I don't think.
Well, yeah.
Please sign him. Someone pop him. How's he not got a club? It's crazy.
You wonder, every so often, what the obstacle is for obviously it's difficult to get anybody in and out of New Zealand right now. That is that question, but you wonder what the blockage was.
Would he be in New Zealand?
No, so that was the thing.
Yeah.
The Blues couldn't get him signed up in time. And that's why they've picked up Bryce Heem, who was otherwise just going to be there, not working, I presume, just training and looking after his family, which is quite cool and good for him. I could do with him in my fantasy team.
Anyone, please. Go on. No, just say
my other thing, just a quickly question on the Irish Bristol game. Has Tuisui got some kind of jaw injury? What's he got? That like padding?
What is ginger beard?
Is it a beard?
Yeah, it's a beard. His orange beard.
Oh right.
He's just dyed.
I've only seen it in like background video or a very blurry picture. It looks like padding with that, just the normal brown tape?
No,
Is he
he's just
bit?
got
Oh,
he's just
Jesus.
dyed his hair, but he's just dyed his beard ginger, mate. He just seen me clearly and gone like that. I'll make a strong statement
Well,
here. Albert Tuasui is the Jamie Vardy of rugby, where we've picked him off from some literal playing in the NRC, carving up for Fiji Daruma. Oh my lord, quality player. He's so good.
he's very good.
I've got so much time for him, so much love for him.
Yeah, you've done well there.
But no, good game. Game of the weekend for me. Great drama. If that's, and again, with obviously the announcement in the UK is that we're on the roadmap to recovery. We won't get too political here, but that game would have been buzzing if there was 10,000 people there. And I do think if there's 10,000 people there, Tom Parton makes that pass and it's a try. There's just something that would just click there. So, no, great result for Irish. Bristol will look back and go, they should have won that and they should have probably won by 50. But, you know, it's all learnings. And that's what Pat Lam says. It's not a loss, it's learning, which I actually quite like. I do like what Pat Lam says.